If art is expression and art is about expression, what do you express? Do you express what you know or what you think other people know? If it is what you know, to what extent do you know what you express via art? And you discover that when you know thyself adequately, it becomes easy for you now to know what is within you and what you are expressing. It becomes easy for you to know, things that, because you are a living organism that is surrounded by some other things, you become aware of those things that surround you. You become aware of other people that surround you. You become aware of the interactions between you and the things around you, between you and the people around you. And this is where your expression starts.
Great to meet you on Zoom, Eva.
It's great, Petra.
Do I pronounce your name right?
Yeah, my name is Eva. Eva Obodo, yeah.
Yeah. Eva, and where are you based?
I'm based at Nsukka in Nigeria.
Okay.
In Africa.
And did you grow up there?
Yes, I grew up in Nigeria. In short, I work at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and that's where I reside in.
Okay.
And I schooled there. I had my art training at the University of Nigeria. I had my first degree, second degree, and PhD there, and I teach there as a professor.
I see. And as a child, were you also artistic, or how did you get into art?
Wonderful. As a child, I was very artistic.
Really?
I said very because in those days, there in the village, we had no much facilities that we have now. In those days, you just managed to have 2, 3 exercise books, but from the early stage, you use slates. We call the board, wooden board made of plywood, maybe 2 by 2 feet square. They give you chalk, and this is what you use. You have a duster and you have a chalk. After one subject, you erase every other thing and use the same board to write the next subject. So you discover that you don't keep record of what you do in the class because each time you erase. And in those days, our drawings would still be in the drawing, on the board. Most often when we go on break or recess during the day, we would go outside and we would, with other children, and we will sit in the sand and begin to draw, maybe with broomsticks or on the ground. After drawing, you clean up whatever. I love drawing cars in those days, Volkswagen, Peugeot. These were the kind of cars that were found around our side in those days. And the little mini buses. These were things we keep on drawing. And because we love them, we always, believe that drawing them makes you own them. So the ones you draw on ground belongs to you automatically.
I see, yeah. But
so these exercises helped. These exercises helped to build my artistic skill in drawing, particularly because that's what we knew. Art then was just about drawing. Nobody knew about clay. We didn't have art teachers per se or whatever, but as kids, because we have seen some illustrations in books, we now knew and attempt drawing some of those things by our own and on our own.
And it's part of the imagination as well as a child. isn't it? That
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, of course. A lot to deal with that. And, as a child, I give credit to my parents, even though they didn't have formal education. But it's like my father was somehow an artist in the sense that he was a good craftsman. He could make traditional crafts. He could make hoe. He could make ropes that we use to climb palm trees. He could do some local sculptures of certain deities. So there are a lot of things he could do that nobody see in those days as art, but which we grew up later and found out that these were real artistic or creativity, having vents in those areas.
And isn't it wonderful also that you say from the village? So it's the rural parts where you don't have a lot, but you have to think and create, and you use the minimum things that you have to create things for yourself.
Of course, these are the things that helped us. When you come to Nsukka, maybe you may have opportunity of, reading some things from Nsukka Art School. Nsukka has been in the forefront of, developing a kind of art that we call natural synthesis. This was initiated by Uche Okeke in those days, who established the department in the early 60s. And it's all about looking back at, picking from your history, from your culture, what is there, and now synthesizing it with the Western kind of art that eventually came in those days. So he called it synthesis, synthesizing this with this other one. So you see, that's exactly what happened. He helped me develop in such a way that I was able to have a kind of deep connection with my roots, in the sense that when most of the things I was trying to, create in those days as I grew up was things around me found from, in my environment. You discover that I have that kind of attachment with my environment. And because we had a kind of a scarcity of materials, or that the modern art materials and techniques were almost non-existent for us in the rural areas in those days, we tried to improvise. And that made us to become more creative in the sense that actually you are not borrowing and you are not working, from a foreign perspective, but from outside. So the development was from outside towards, from the inside towards outside. I
That's
don't
so
know if it makes clear.
I understand completely what you mean, and I think also I spoke to young artists from South Africa, from KwaZulu Natal, who also told me that they started drawing. I mean, this one boy said he started drawing in the sand, and then at some point he got a pencil and paper and he started drawing there. And I was thinking, it's not always a given that you have all these art materials, yet it's something within you that finds find a way to create art and to create. And this is what you're saying now also, that you were able to look around you and see what can you use in your environment, which is part of where you grew up, that you can use as a form of creation.
Sure, that's a very good observation. And, I always tell my students that it is good to look at yourself and ask some pertinent questions. The pertinent question is, what is the purpose of art? What is art? Mm-hmm. When you ask yourself what is art, and you look at it, maybe the simplest definition will be art is expression. If art is expression, and art is about expression, what do you express? Do you express what you know or what you think other people know? If it is what you know, to what extent do you know what you express via art? And you discover that when you know thyself adequately, it becomes easy for you now to know what is within you and what you are expressing. It becomes easy for you to know, things that, because you are a living organism that is surrounded by some other things, you become aware of those things that surround you. You become aware of other people that surround you. You become aware of the interactions between you and the things around you, between you and the people around you. And this is where your expression starts before you begin to look forward to things they tell you in stories, because you look forward to expressing those things you hear about in books, you read about, you watch in the videos, you watch in the films. But you start from within, from those ones, from your immediate environment. So you are correct.
And what I also find interesting about your story is that you said you drew in the sand and then erased it, and it's that it's not that you were able to protect it or to keep it or
to record them.
To record them, you just every time had to start again, and that almost for me is so great. It must be frustrating, because if you did a lovely painting and and you have to erase it, but then on the other hand, it sort of develops you, isn't it? That every time, every time you redo and redo and redo,
you keep on developing. There was this one incident that I drew. With the eye, I see things now, it may be different, but then it was so perfect. That drawing was so perfect that one of our schoolmates in those days came, looking at it, used his legs and wiped the pen. It touched me that I had to cry, I had to weep, I had to want to fight the person, because what was drawn that time was there. But the fact is that when you have dismissed, or when they have, if they ring a bell for you now, for when the break is over and they ring a bell and you are going in, because you can't protect it anymore, you discover that satisfaction ends and it eases away from your mind for the next session of drawing. You understand? So you don't continue to remember what has happened. And when we go home, that's why I said I give credit to my parents, because in those days, if you come to our walls, particularly the particular room I was living, I still remember this jeep that I drew with chalk on a wall. When I saw that jeep much later, which was perfect when I was a kid, I discovered that it was, descending on a hill, and I could see how I managed to indicate that it is moving up and down. So when I tried to think through my experience, I discovered that actually, because I'm from Udi, local government, in this local government area, we normally say it is Udi Hills when we are reading geography. So Udi is situated in an area that will have an undulating movement of hills. How I knew as a kid that cars were moving down and moving up, I couldn't understand until later, when I became a little mature and started looking at the drawing. I discovered how a child could reason in those days in order to, realize that the movement is not just straight, but it is a kind of an undulating movement where it has to climb hill, move down the valley, climb hill. So these were the part of this. So my parents aided. They never scolded me for, drawing on the walls or trying to dirty the walls. So sometimes I would use charcoal or white chalk. Charcoal is black because we use firewood to cook. I will always pick some of the charcoal and use it to draw. And when you are drawing on a concrete wall, you see it vigorously black. So all the walls were littered with all
Okay.
kinds of drawing.
Amazing. And like you said, that your parents encouraged that, and that they understood that they can allow you to do that.
Yes.
But this is such a beautiful story, and it also I see also that you use charcoal, but that I saw this, and this was actually what made me contact you. I saw the artwork that you did with charcoal and wire, that you put all small bits of charcoal and wire together.
Oh, a long story.
Tell me.
Yes. In that part of our area in local government, Enugu State, if you Google coal in Nigeria, they will tell you from which part it came from. They mine coal from that my area. And my father was a coal miner. So we used to, and because of the contact with the Europe and the mining of coal in that area, it's a big city emerged from that area because of the expatriates coming and people from other parts of the country coming to live there and to mine. So it was a major activity that eventually made a big city out of that place. So it became an urban area. So when I now grew up and started teaching at Benue State Polytechnic, a polytechnic in Benue State, then there was a huge market for charcoal. People now make charcoals and use them for cooking. At that time, coal, people have stopped mining coal because Nigeria has discovered oil. So the attention of the government has moved from coal to oil. So that coal mine, Onyama mine, became dilapidated and coal exploitation of coal ceased. But when I now saw these sacks of coal, because they normally sell them in sacks, bag them in sacks. Some are selling for export, some, wood they have burnt into coal. So it became a good um, material for export, as also good material for people, for things people sell locally, for those people who use it now to cook. So, but I saw something different. It reminded me of the coal mine that I had, that I saw when I was a kid, that my father used to. Because I discovered that coal and charcoal are almost similar. They are all carbon materials. They are all black. And they serve the same purpose, source of energy. You use the charcoal from wood as a source of energy. You use the charcoal you mine from the ground as a source of energy. So you see similarities. So I now said, okay, what about those things that happened around me? Can I not see how I express some of my experiences and some of the things my father told me about as a coal miner, the experiences he has had, I said, I think that's an opportunity. That's when I now looked at charcoal, because charcoal for me represents coal. And like I told you, you see the similarities both in the physical nature of both materials and in their functions. So I said, okay, let me now express myself through that. That's how I started using charcoal.
That's so wonderful. And so it's that again, using the environment or what it was in your environment that you then start expressing yourself.
Yes. And
Mm.
my lecturer here, Ella Nasui, he's one of the contemporary giants now in art. He is my mentor. He taught me. He supervised my first degree. He supervised my second degree. He supervised my PhD. So I worked as a studio assistant in his studio, Ella Nasri. So he has taught us that time that an artist is better off working with what the environment has thrown up. That is in quote. So that charcoal is what my environment has thrown up, and that is what I have fallen back to. Instead of using wood, using concrete, I said, okay, let me use charcoal. Though I use fabrics, that is fibre, because you may see some of works in you that I use jute fibre to do, but I used two of them simultaneously. I use charcoal, I use this. When I face charcoal, I will use charcoal. When I face jute, I use jute. But what we are discussing now is charcoal, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also what I find also beautiful is that through the art and through creating this art form or this art, you also uh, put attention on the story behind it, or put attention on. It's almost as if it wants you to ask the question, and it wants you to look into, like you said, that was the story of your father in the coal mine, and it's that's for me such a beautiful thing about art, is it makes us ask the question, or that makes us look deeper into the artwork.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, about what my story, my father's experience, and about my own experience as somebody who has seen firsthand, though as a child, and somebody who is living in a community where that oil was exploited. Because I ask pertinent questions about the contemporary time now, with respect to what the charcoal, what actually the community has gained from discovering charcoal, discovering coal and mining it. Has the community gained? Has the country gained? What is the state? Has the influx of people from different parts of the world into that community enhanced the development of the community, or has it become a cause onto the community? These are pertinent questions that come in one after the other in each work that I produce. For each one, I will look back and now think and then come up with what I think. But the majority, because you noted at the beginning of this interview that I use pieces of charcoal in which I tie differently. Yes, that is the general theme. The general theme is that one, you see them as packages. If you see how they are tied, you discover that each one is tied like a package, either birthday gift or a package for export, or for something that is high, that has to be commuted from one place to another. That is the thing. But the aggregate composition, composing the entire pieces into now begins to tell stories about all these points we are raising via the use of colors and via the use of threads and via the patterns of tying and so on and so forth.
Do you have an exact idea when you start with artwork like that? Do you know exactly how it's going to look when it's finished, or is it a process? How you have a first idea and you start working, and the more you sort of think about it, and the more you think of the questions that, or the story behind it, it evolves.
It is about all that you have just said.
Okay.
There is no one way to the way I use,
Okay.
to the method I use. Sometimes I use sketches. Sketches means that you try to generate the idea. You have to think it through before you now get it produced. That is what sketches does. As you are sketching, you are, trying to muse through some ideas and develop them until you now say, okay, this. Sometimes I will work, it will be a spontaneous kind of effect in which you start working and the work begins to remind you. As it progresses, you begin to see part of the things that you have had an experience of. You begin to remember something and then develop it along that line. Sometimes you even finish doing a piece, even as you are working it. But the fact is that you are carried by the formal nature of the work and you become enthused with the form of the things that are emerging and you follow it through. In the end, when some people come to your studio to make a studio visit and then begin to look at the works, their own kind of ideas, what they express begins to inform you of what you have done. So you see, there is no one way.
Yeah.
It depends on each work, comes in a different mold. The other one comes in a different mold. This other one comes in a different mold. But the important thing is that when you look in the end at the work, it fits into the experience that either the one I have explained that I know or the ones my father has told me.
If you look, like you say, you look back and you feel, do you feel then that satisfaction, or is that almost like a healing inside you, where you've expressed things and then you think it's fine, it's okay if it was something that was maybe a negative experience, but can you see afterwards, can you look at it and feel okay about it, then feel healed almost?
Yes, at some point you look at it and get satisfied and feel healed using your word. Healed is that you say, okay, but sometimes it agitates you. What you have done helps to remind some of those things that agitate your mind, that begins to cause you, begin to feel so sad. Particularly when you look at things that are, instead of developing positively, they keep developing negatively in the negative direction. Of course, it can be healing. It will rather agitate your mind. I'll give you one instance. In 1949 or 48, 47, thereabout, there was a shooting of the coal miners in Enugu. My father witnessed that, firsthand because it was part of the coal miners. What was their offense? The offense was because they embarked on strike, demanding for a better pay, a better working condition for the coal miners. But then the British administrator then wasn't seeing it that way because they were more or less engaging our people to harness, to exploit this gold for what? For shipment to Britain and some other places, making the gains. and paying them what these other people feel wasn't enough for them. And in the end, there was a little negotiation, but the negotiation failed. The coal miners insist that they are not going to be flushed out for them to hire new people to come and replace them anyhow. So they came in group and continue to stay at the mines in protest. When the administrator in charge came, he came with the military and decided to open fire. My father was eating roasted yam with one of his friends who was also a miner at one corner of the mine, because when you now see the mine, you see vast areas. People will have encampments where some certain kind of activities we are going within. So coal miners will come, some will have their breakfast where they are selling little food and so they were at one corner roasting some yam they brought from home to eat. So the yam was ready and they were already eating the roasted yam when the soldier, the police with the administrator came. So they started hearing shooting from afar. And the man asked my dad, see, what is happening? Let's see. My father said, when you have food, you don't leave food to rush for anything. You must first of all finish the food before you stand up. But the noise and the shooting and every other thing couldn't allow the man. So the man stood up. On trying to rush out to find out what was happening, a bullet hit the man at the stomach, on the stomach. So my father was describing how human intestine was. He described it to me, saying that he never knew that human intestine can be as big, because he used his arm, like, can be as big as this, that the thing rushed out of that man's stomach. Immediately the bullet burst open his bowels. And he collapsed, shouted, had just one shout and slumped. That he now managed to lie low, took cover on the ground, and that was an experience. So he continued. So when I look at that kind of thing, I now said, okay, yes, it happened when the colonial masters were in charge. Now that we have had independence with our own people in government, is it still over? Is it still there, or is it over? You see what's thing happening. So when you see this kind of thing, experience this kind of thing, it doesn't give you a kind of healing that you refer to, but it agitates your mind and cause more problem. When you look back and see, and you say, no, if it is what our own present government has learned from the masters, it means the code did not bring the thing that we need for development actually. These are so many questions and narratives that normally come up each time I look at some of my works.
But that is so, it's so, I would say, I want to say wonderful, but in a way that I would say that how art has this possibility to do this, to evoke these emotions, to tell these stories, to ask these questions, and that's, that it can be at such a deep level.
It is, because it is not all about doom. Because sometimes you look at some things, because some of these coal miners now had that kind of contact, they started making small effort in developing their case. That's why today I am seated here. I went to school. My father insisted that he would want his son or his child to attend to school. And so this is a positive aspect anyway that came from that kind of contact. even though they may have suffered some other things, you begin to see that certain things that we enjoy, come from the fact that actually they were cheated, but in other way, they were able to gain from the little they were given. What they have gained is part of the things we enjoy today. So it is when you think in this direction, you think in the other direction, and it becomes balanced.
And it's now I totally understand also what you meant about saying, look at where you are and look at what you have to tell the story or to create the art. And this is exactly what you did with that.
Yes, yes.
That's so beautiful, really. Because I think we do also tend to always think, outside. You want to grab onto things that's outside of you, far outside of you, because you think this will be impressive or this will be the ideal that nobody's ever seen. Yet it's so simple. It can be just something around you that you can use.
Yes, but part of the problem we have in Nigeria in the early days of modern art is that many artists, young artists, started copying, trying to be like the West that brought that kind of academic art practice, the academic art practice. And because the missionaries who came in those days to our parts condemned every other thing about our traditional art, terming them shrines and Satan and all kind of things. And if you see any sculpture piece, they say it is shrine and it is idol, it is for worshiping Satan. And they tried, while trying to make converts, condemn all those people. So when the initial young people started creating art, they abandoned that direction and wanted to go in the direction of the one that are not idol worship, idolatry, in line with what they were told that this how art should be. So they started creating, and they were more interested in perspective. They were more interested in anatomy, human anatomy, getting it exactly the way it is. They were more interested in a landscape. Nobody knows the fact that an art may be interesting, but may be very hollow. It is hollow when it doesn't contain much that makes it that expression that it should be. So, but now, like I said, people now have realized that, well, you have to look back. You have to look at this way. There is no way, a tree cannot make a forest. So you get from this, and make something better. It makes it a more refined thing. So that as you are there, looking at what I have produced, you will be able to take one or two things out of it. Then somebody from this part of the world will also look at it and make a little sense out of it. This is now making the thing more like to be well suited for this kind of global era that we find ourselves.
And I also think now back on the interviews I did with the young artists in KwaZulu-Natal, how they tell stories about their environment, how they use very traditional sort of symbolism to tell their stories. And you think that's so beautiful because it suddenly highlights also areas of the world that we don't normally get to know about.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I agree with them, actually.
And I spoke to a hair and makeup artist, and he's because I was thinking at one stage, I talked to a lot of artists from Africa, and I think how wonderful all the work that you are all doing, and even dancers and choreographers and are so creative, so with so little, they do so much, you know. And I think the world is so stuck on the poverty in Africa, yet there is so much creativity in Africa. There's so much art in Africa, and it's almost that it comes from within, and it comes from the fact that there maybe is a bit of a hindrance for you to just have everything. That this real, true art, this honest art, comes from because you create from what you have.
Yeah, I like the way you have made this analysis. It's very interesting, and I like it when you said the world, may be focusing more on poverty in Africa, and so on and so forth. One of the biggest problems we have is not poverty, because Africa is never poor. Africa is about the richest continent in the world. But you see, that problem we had from the colonial masters of maybe taking off in the wrong direction is what is the problem with, and which the world should help Africa, if they want Africa to be great, to do. And what is it? The idea that our leaders know nothing other than corruption. It is this corruption that has made us stagnant. Look at a place that is well known for coal, that has mined coal for many decades before it got stopped. If you go to that town, if you go to that city, you won't believe that this place had generated a lot of resources like it had. Go to the places where they are now drilling oil. In Nigeria, Nigeria is about the largest oil producing country in Africa. It is to be compared to Saudi Arabia and the rest. Why should we be talking about poverty in Africa? Nigeria has, we are in the tropics where almost virtually every kind of crop grows well. Every kind of crop grows well. There are people in the desert. There are people in the Icelands. These people are not talking about poverty, but people who are where the nature has placed them, where they can make better lives, are people who are now suffering of poverty. You discover that it is not poverty, actually. It is a disease that has attacked the system and has made it to a standstill. And we keep on requesting that any who can help us deal with our leaders in such a way that they will understand that corruption is not the best. They will get the place corrupted and then get outside where things are working fine and want to live there forever. You understand? So this is part of the things we try to see. Many of both the choreographers, artists, and other people are trying to let the world know that the help should not be in terms of aids.
Oops, you disappeared. Oh, there you are. Okay, right?
Are you seeing me?
Yeah, now
Are
I
you?
see you. Yeah, now
Okay.
I see. Yeah, okay, yeah.
It is the network provider. So these are the things we continue to shout and cry for. Let us be heard, that there's no good things that are not coming out from these people. But the leaders will never encourage people to be productive, to do something that helps people make progress. That's just it.
No, that's true. And what is your feeling about children and exposure for children to art? Because you, as a child, you were talking about that you went out and in break time and did the drawing in the sand. But don't you think it's also important for schools to provide this as a subject for children alongside all the other subjects in the school?
Yeah,
Art
that
form.
is a part of the things here in the university. We are doing everything. The only thing is that when you have bad government, they don't look at policies. Because as a person, I always advocate that fine art should even be made compulsory, like they have made English and mathematics compulsory for any child to read in tertiary institutions and at every level. I said fine art should equally be, because in every aspect of life, for you to do anything and do it well, you should have a sense of creativity in it. If you are going to be a bricklayer who doesn't know that a line is straight can never attempt to make a straight line or a straight wall. A painter who doesn't know what a color mix and why colors should be mixed in certain proportion can never give you an engineer who doesn't think about the aesthetics of what is better, only thinking of structural effect, can never make a very fantastic. So you see, in all aspects of life, you need that art. But like I said, our government is such a daft one that they don't, no matter all the things, papers we write here, or the conferences and every other thing, it goes down the drain. Here, sometimes we find it difficult to get enough students into our faculty for training as artists because many of them fail to do it at their secondary and primary level due to a lack of teachers. But we have struggled and struggled. They could only make it now. It could be there. Some schools are offering the fine art, some are not. So it's not compulsory. It is, if this school likes, it will say they don't have art teachers, they don't want to. And nobody will ever say, now that we have had enough art educationists, employ some and make sure that it is not part of that one. It is that some schools can employ. Sometimes they employ somebody who did dramatic arts in school or music to come and teach fine art. You can see how odd it is.
Yeah.
So this is just the situation we battle with here. But the interesting thing is that when you are gifted, that is what you see. You see so many people around here who didn't even do fine art in their school days at all, from primary to tertiary levels. You see them making good, become artists, like Okwe Enwezo. Okwe Enwezo never did fine art, but he was one of the best creators they had in United States before he died. And there are so many people who didn't attend art schools, but because of the overflowing creative skill that are in them, they now realize themselves and start pursuing it even at a level. So we are trying as much as possible to see how we can get people understand the need for art at all levels.
And it's so, I mean, now there's so much evidence to also show how art change lives, how it makes the brain reacts, make reactions in the brain and give people many opportunities as well.
Plenty, a lot.
But Eva, this is so great to talk to you. You've got such beautiful art. I was so immediately attracted, and I so wanted to know your story because I thought this was so beautiful. And now, after speaking to you, also, what a beautiful human being you are, and telling these stories. This is so wonderful. But
No,
what is
it's wonderful chatting with you. Honestly, I love, whenever you see somebody who is in the same shoe with you, discussing the things you like and discussing it very well, you appreciate it. I have been looking forward to discussion with you because it is
us?
not, you rarely see people who are interested in this kind of things.
Yeah. But
It's amazing.
what is
Mm.
your dream, Eva? What is the dream and what is the wish for you?
My dream is to uh, get people realize that art is something, that art is life, particularly to get people around me here in Nigeria understand that they don't, when you say you are an artist, they don't even regard you. And because our people, particularly the kids, always look for those ones they say it is something, they want to become like that. It is either they say they want to do law because they hear that barristers are respected, or they want to do medicine because they will be called doctor and they will now be special people, or they become a pharmacist. When you tell a child at the secondary school, because once in a while we go to give them a kind of advice and some other kind of encouragement, you discover that none of them is is proud or will be proud to come out and say, I want to become an artist.
Really?
Yes, yes, it's just what I told you. It's either nursing, it is either pharmacy, it is either medicine, it's either law, it's either engineering. These are the ones they say, because from the old, these were people they always respect. Once you come, the government will place you in a good job, give you quotas, begin to treat you like someone. Mm-hmm. And we have been battling, like I told you, people have been condemning art, saying that it is, if this thing is devilish, it is idol worshiping, it is this and that. So my wish is that people will have a good idea of what art is all about. That people will begin to see art as something that is part of an effort that will help to develop the country. In as much as the other ones are important, they are not more important than art. All of them complement each other in a different way. And the more we understand it, the more we now move in the trajectory of building a better civilized society.
Mm. I totally
That
agree.
is my wish. And then you were asking me, what would I want to, that's your second question.
Yeah. What is the dream and the wish? Yeah.
So that's where the direction I am dreaming at, not necessarily to make, because once you like art, whether you are selling or you are not selling, whether you are making sale or you are not making, is never part of what is in your mind. These things are secondary. What is primary is that satisfaction, that you are doing what you feel you can do well and you are doing it well. And the more you excel, the more you become happy, you become accomplished. So this is my dream. This is my direction. This is what I wish.
That's so beautiful. And I'm going to wish this with you.
I want to make one remark.
Yes.
The remark is that, you know, an artist or the art people owe people like you a lot. Because it is through this your medium, through this that art is promoted.
Mm.
If an artist goes into the studio, like immediately I'm done with here, I've dashed, you discover that art cannot be kept on a plane where it should be for everyone to begin to appreciate, to understand, to now debate on, because it is meant to instigate a kind of debates and discussions.
Mm.
So you and the people who are doing same as you are doing are people who are helping to develop art in its real sense. while we do the production. You are the people who are there developing it, making it now to move, making it to go press. So I have to commend you for that.
Thank
So
you so
well
much.
done.
Thank you so much. And I love doing that. And I love learning from, I learn, when you tell me the story, I learn from you. And I would so love to visit Nigeria and come and see what everybody's doing, because I've spoken to so many lovely artists in all over Africa, and I so would love to go and see.
But feel free anytime, feel free. Even though no matter however they paint in Nigeria, it is still interesting. It is still interesting for people to visit, to come, to see things for themselves, because it is not as gloomy as it is painted. You understand? There are still so many interesting things to keep someone in Nigeria and make. And I encourage people who travel to come and have that kind of experience, and then for a while and go. That's life.